Today, we're joined on Telling Your Asset Management Story by Brian Hauff and Lucas Applewhite from the University of Southern Mississippi. This dynamic duo comes from very different backgrounds, but have teamed up to elevate Southern Miss's facilities. Brian is an architect turned campus facility leader who has over 2 decades of experience in higher education. Lucas is a retired Air Force officer who found a second career managing university operations. Together, they'll share how they balance long-term planning with day-to-day problem solving across a major research university. Brian oversees the Hattiesburg campus, and Lucas manages 6 research sites on the Gulf Coast, so they know a thing or two about keeping everything running smoothly. Get ready for insights on how an architect's design mindset and a veteran's project management skills combine to create a great environment for students and faculty. Brian, Luke, thanks for joining us today on Telling Your Asset Management Story. We're really excited to hear from both of you from different parts of the University of Southern Mississippi, and really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us.
Yeah, Bill, we appreciate it.
Awesome. So where we like to start this is really, I'm always fascinated by how people end up in the facility and asset management world. And so, Brian, why don't we start with you, and then Luke, you can jump in afterwards. But can you tell us a little bit about your personal journey and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. I started off as a licensed architect. I still am. I went to architecture school at Montana State in Bozeman, and worked I did some higher education work. I was doing some commercial things like that for various different firms. Got my license a long time ago, back in 1997, and did a lot of work in, like I said, it was in Montana and Idaho at the time. And after that, I went out on my own, and my wife and I, we had an architect firm in the Idaho area for about 4.5 years, and that was going well until the Great Recession hit. And so we had great relationships, but everybody was saying, we like you, but we got to pause on our projects. And so we had got to a point where I had to look for work, and ended up getting a job at an architect firm that had been looking for somebody for about a year, for somebody who had owned their own firm in Virginia. So it was at that point that I was doing all higher education. So it was a firm on the East Coast in Virginia Beach. I was doing a lot of work at James Madison University.
Nice.
And so, but I was traveling quite a bit. And so I just wasn't home much. So I wanted to find some work-life balance. And so my wife suggested, why don't you see if you can work for a university? Because I was doing a lot of higher ed stuff. And I ended up in Missouri, working at Missouri State as a staff architect. And I did that for a number of years there successfully. And then there was a position that opened up at a private university, Evangel University, for a director of facilities. And that was where I really made a transition more into facilities management. I mean, kind of at Missouri State, working on the owner's side as an owner's rep, I got some experience, understanding kind of how an owner thinks. And but then working at Evangel, I was basically the campus architect, but I was also a head of facilities, so I oversaw the buildings and grounds and everything there. And I learned a lot about what it takes to. So after an architect leaves a project, a lot of times they're thinking the project's over, but when you're the owner, you think about things differently, right?
Absolutely. It's just begun in some ways, right?
It's just begun, right? So I think that experience actually, made me a better architect, because it helped me to think about high durability, low maintenance on all the things we did, whether it was products or systems or things like that. And then in 2023, a position opened up here at the University of Southern Mississippi And so I took that position. And so now I'm the Senior Associate Vice President for Facilities Planning and Management. It's a mouthful, but basically, I oversee the buildings and grounds at the Hattiesburg campus and on the coast. And I work closely with Luke. Luke pretty much oversees everything on the coast. It makes my job a lot easier as far as that goes. And that's kind of where I'm at. So
Awesome.
I've got over 20 years of higher education experience, about half of it in design and about half of it as an owner's representative for facilities
nice.
management.
Nice. Excellent. Luke, over to you.
So I came into this a little bit on a different path than Brian. Unlike a lot of people in roles like mine, I'm not an architect or an engineer. Coming at this more from the operations side of the house. In 2018, I retired from the U.S. Air Force after 21 years and 3 months.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. I was in a career field that really didn't have a whole lot to do with facilities, but the last 8 years or so of that career was doing a lot of project management. I got my project management professional certification while I was still in the Air Force and was able to apply a lot of those tools and techniques to project management, and really just had to get really, really good at managing people during that time, which helped me out a lot moving into the facilities world in higher education when I left the Air Force. So in 2018, I was out looking for a job and kind of what the next path was going to be, and ended up in a role as the director of the physical plant at our university's marine lab on the Gulf Coast, and then was there about 3 years, and in 2021 got the nod to take over as the director of facilities planning and management. Not really take over; it was a newly created role to kind of put all of the coast facilities under one person. So I'm now the director of facilities planning and management for all of our sites along the northern Gulf, south of Interstate 10. It's about 6 sites and about 700,000 square feet in 3 counties.
Nice.
A lot
Awesome.
of lot of research intensive sites. 2 of our schools that give us our R1 research university designation are on the campuses on the coast. So we're kind of proud to have that, and it's a great role.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, Luke, and thanks for giving us a little bit of a background on the coastal campus as well. Let's move north, Brian. Why don't you let us know a little bit about the Hattiesburg campus and,
Sure.
and anything about USM overall?
Sure. Yeah. So like Luke mentioned, University of Southern Mississippi is an R1 institution. That is something that is a distinction of us. It differentiates us. We are also campus here in Hattiesburg, about, let's see, I think it's about 4.9 million square feet. I think it's about 170 buildings and 300 acres. The Hattiesburg campus started in 1910. And so we have a variety of buildings on campus. We've got, buildings that I think our first building actually was finished in 1912. And so we have from there till I think our newest building was probably built like about 4 or 5 years ago. So we have a wide range of buildings, all different ages, different eras of construction. And it just makes things very unique as far as managing our resources.
Yeah, absolutely. And and Luke, anything else to add on the coastal buildings beyond what you said before?
I don't think so. We've got our satellite academic campus is on the coast, and then, like I said before, the rest of the sites are typically research-driven sites. A lot of marine biology, hydrography, ocean engineering, a lot of blue economy connected locations and programs.
Right. Yeah, a lot of really interesting equipment and a lot of internal building dehumidification challenges, I'm sure, on top of the regular challenges of the climate.
Yeah, I usually kind of describe it as we built a building, and then we put an above the ground swimming pool inside of the building, and then we filled that up with salt water, and then we aerated it.
Yeah.
So we can.
Yeah. What could go wrong, right?
What could go wrong, right? And not all of these buildings were purpose built to fill them up with saltwater tanks. a lot of them were built without really understanding what was going to go on in them in the future. They've been turned into research buildings over the years. So you can imagine some of the challenges we have.
Absolutely. Well, and that's a great segue because that's where I wanted to go next, is to kind of look at the facility and asset management challenges that you guys have faced in the recent past and sort of in today, before we turn our eyes to the future. And Luke, I don't know if you were planning to talk about it, but I know when we first met, you were talking about the renewal by FEMA approach. So if you wouldn't mind telling that story, because I think it's probably something that folks along the Gulf have experienced themselves, and then kind of dive into some of the other challenges. Then Brian will go north
Sure.
and look at the different challenges that you may face on the Hattiesburg campus.
Yeah, what I kind of cynically used to refer to it as, and still do, is we would do repair and renovation by disaster declaration.
Right.
So we would R&R a building if we had a fire in it, or if a hurricane had taken the roof off, the building would get a new roof, right? It was these kind of fly to fail approaches on a lot of our capital renewal. And that's really kind of not fair, right? Some of the predecessors just didn't have the tools and the understanding of capital renewal and having long range plans. And in a lot of cases, they didn't have the financial resources to address those things. But the real problem was just no capital funding strategy and no real understanding of where their feet were in that given moment, right? So what are our conditions today? What's our current state? Which is a big part of knowing what you need to do to move forward, is just where you are in a given moment. So we had, when I got to our Marine lab about 10 years prior to me getting there, not quite, maybe about 5 to 6 years before I got there, that had a local architecture firm come through and do some facility assessments. And they kind of took a lot of input from campus community. And what they got was a lot of wish list items. It wasn't really time scaled. It was not in a format. It wasn't based in reality in a lot of times. And a lot of the recommendations were wish list things that people wanted to see upgrades to the building, right?
Right.
Kind of hard to parse out what was fact and what was fiction and what was really required and what wasn't required. And is there a feeling that this particular generator needs to be replaced, or is it real?
Yeah.
That was kind of where we were at, was trying to kind of look at that and understand. It had not been updated for inflation in about 8 years when I got a hold of these assessments. So we were kind of stuck trying to kind of look at these things and say, what do we do with this, right? And can we adjust it with some tools like the historic construction cost index and try to get some kind of an understanding of what the financial needs of the campus were for R&R. And it wasn't perfect. It was a way to start until, of course, we bumped into Bill Roth and kind of got started on our story that we're on today, or our pathway we're on today.
Well, I think you know this already, Luke, but you were the start of our journey into the U.S. market as well, because you were our first U.S. Customer when we had expanded from north of the border. So I'm glad. I appreciate that, and thank you for that and for joining us. Brian, any challenges on your end that you would like to share?
Sure. In Hattiesburg, I think they were probably farther back than Luke on some respects. Just the fact that Luke had done facility condition assessments with you guys, with Roth, was really encouraging to me personally. So my background related to facility condition assessments, in one of the places I worked at back in Montana and Idaho, I was part of a team that the firm had a term contract with the Department of Interior. And we went around the country doing facility condition assessments of different USGS sites.
Okay.
And so that was my first experience related to facility condition assessments, what they are, what they do. And I even kind of did my own homebrew version of that when I had my own firm, where I did facility condition assessments to help my customers understand spaces, like if they wanted to purchase a property, to just kind of go through it to see, is this property a viable property or not,
Mm-hmm.
as well as just helping with master planning efforts and things of that sort. So I did some of that sort of thing when I was at Evangel, and help them to kind of go through and figure out, how they should be managing the limited resources that we had. And so then when I got to meet Luke on the coast, and I started here in Hattiesburg in 2023, I was really excited that Luke had been talking about facility condition assessments and just the value of them, because I appreciated that as well, and not everybody understands that. So then to be able to say, okay, Luke has been working with Roth on the coast. Let's see if we can bring that north to Hattiesburg. And so we're probably about 2 years out of phase from where Luke is at. But we've started to do the same facility condition assessments with Roth here at the Hattiesburg campus as well.
Nice.
So a little bit of a funny story there is Brian's predecessor was leaving. He mentioned that we had kind of gotten started with FCAs before he got there. We were driving super hard to try to get down this path because we didn't know Brian was going to be Brian, right?
Right,
And we
right.
didn't know if we were going to get somebody in that was going to say FCAs are a bunch of garbage. We don't want to spend this money.
Right.
So we were working with our CFO, who Brian reports to, because that position was vacant, and kind of lined up support and got the money, and we're pushing really hard to get down this path, with knowing that a new AVP of facilities was coming in, and kind of wanted to have that person on their first day say, "Oh, by the way, look at what we've done, right? Look at where we're
Yeah.
at." And once again, Brian's been great. He's come in and been very supportive. He understood. He said, "This is good stuff. Let's keep going." That's been huge for us. It's been really good to have a leader that kind of supports what you're doing and the path that you're going down.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Brian, I know when we've presented together at conferences, you told the story of the success of how you were able to get some additional funding for a specific issue that had been around for a little while. I think that's a challenge that a lot of the folks in our audience face, is not just getting the data, but actually using it to make a difference and have an impact. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that success that you had?
Sure. So we had some challenges with an existing building, and it had issues with hazardous materials. It had issues, structural issues, and so we started working with Bill's company, with Roth Imes, and they were on campus, and this building wasn't listed on the list, because at first we went through just trying to determine which buildings to pick, because and we basically went through, I mean, a simple solution was to just go through and which buildings have the most work orders. And so we started with like the first, I think it was like 24 buildings or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And while they were on campus, I went through and was looking at this one building that wasn't included. And I was thinking, Bill, would it be okay for you to check this building too, especially just for structural, if anything? And I'm so glad that we did. So this was, what was it, January of 24, I think?
I think so, yeah.
January of 24. So we did that. And there had been reports done in this building in the past. But what was different was just the level of detail that the Rothheims report provided. I mean, I think it was over 100 pages. And what it did, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And I think that's what it came down to, is that there's these photos that were undeniable, so
Mm-hmm.
we had reports before, but because it was just text on paper, it wasn't communicating the whole story. And so those photos were huge to basically say, look, this is the situation and we need to do something about it. So the structural report that was provided just basically stated, you can't avoid this any longer. You need to do something about this. And so through that process, I was able to meet with my boss, the CFO, as well as some of the other senior vice presidents, and they agreed. It's like, yeah, we can't avoid this any longer. We need to do something now. And so it allowed us. So I made that presentation. So we got the report back. I think it was your guys came in January. We got the report. I think it was early March. I made the presentation to the VPs and the president. And so in a very short period of time, I think like in about a few weeks, they basically gave me the green light to just move
That's
forward. And it allowed us to then get the work done during the spring and summer so that we were ready for fall semester, because that was our goal. We had to get things done. We had to get it to a point where we could wrap it up, at least the first phase of it, by fall semester, which we were able to achieve.
That's awesome. That's great. Well, and I mean, it's always, I always say those with the best data win when it comes to funding and decision making. And thanks for sharing that success story that you had, because again, a lot of folks have the data, but it's nice to see when there's been a success in solving a problem and getting a building ready to go. And Luke, I know that you guys have recently gone to market to replace your CMMS system. I know lots of folks that I talk to are they're either just implementing a CMMS system, or they've had one for a long time and they're looking to replace it and things like that. Any thoughts or advice for folks that have a CMMS system that are looking to go to market for a new system? Like what were the biggest headaches? What were the biggest things? Where did you put your most time to make sure that what you got back was what you're looking for? And I know Brian, it's covering both the coast and Hattiesburg, so feel free to jump in as well.
Yeah, so we're working on that for our entire university system. We have had a legacy system for a really long time, about 20 years. It has been sufficient. It's worked okay, but there are a lot of new products out on the market.
Mm-hmm.
Due to some regulatory requirements, we needed to kind of recompete that system and put it out to bid. And we've looked at this as an opportunity to take a big leap forward in our asset management strategy, to get a better system that will better link with our capital asset planning, that will categorize our data a little easier, has a better schema, and quite frankly is going to be a lot easier for the field technicians to use. We think that's the plan.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be working with Roth Imes to make sure that we get our schema set up for our equipment and our new system. And we're kind of at a crossroads of how we manage all of this data that Brian and I have now been collecting for a couple of years with Roth's help. As an aside, kind of a common thing I've heard at conferences when we've talked about that we've done the FCAs is from our peers is you did it. Well, good luck keeping that data fresh and being able to use it for more than a year or two.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good challenge. I mean, we don't think we're going to fail at that, right? We've got a plan to use the CMMS and to kind of integrate our demand and annual maintenance with our capital maintenance strategy. A long-term plan is to use this to implement APA 1000, their total cost of ownership standard, where we can, at the very least, apply that to a certain segment of managed assets that are our more critical assets, like our chillers, our roof systems, our boilers.
Dehumidification.
Dehumidification, right?
Yeah.
And kind of finding that sweet spot of how far down the uniformat structure to go with that, right? We're not going to have fan coil units in our managed asset plan, but we do want to have those big risky things that in a lot of cases, quite frankly, we're assuming more risk than we should, or we're assuming risk that's actually our CFO or our president's risk, right? And I think we just want to continue to get better and better at managing that risk and being able to tell that story of what that asset's condition is, what the outlook of it is. Like I told our CFO several years ago when we were getting support to even start the FCAs is I want to be able to tell you how much money I need 20 years from now, 15 years from now,
Right.
30 years from now. I don't want to be able to tell you how much money I needed last year.
Yeah.
That's not helpful. So we're really trying to have a forward-leaning approach. We want to work to kind of have those annual maintenance dollars that are going into these systems recorded in our capital asset management plan. So we're really trying to stop people from using CMMS or computerized maintenance management software and start referring it to as our EAMS, our enterprise asset management system, right? And
Nice.
just shift that focus from we just turn wrenches to we're long-term stewards of assets.
That's awesome.
So
Brian, anything?
that's a big overarching view of it, right? Tactically,
Yeah.
we've been
Yeah,
writing all the requirements and evaluating a lot of tactical. Does this button do this thing, and does this
Yeah.
H, right? So there's a lot of that tactical little minutia as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think Luke basically summed it up very well. I mean, the other thing that I've been thinking about as far as like a value that facility condition assessments have provided us, especially from Roth, relates to a meeting that I had last week, where we had a state agency come in and we were giving a presentation to them of our we're doing a 10-year campus master plan update that we're required to do by IHL. That's the governing body for the state of Mississippi for universities. And as a part of that, we basically we provided the Roth data to the campus master plan consultants, which then they could take that and integrate that into our 5, 10, 20 years out campus master planning, which is helping us to know what buildings do we need to divest from or demolish eventually, what buildings do we need to renovate. And so and I don't know if you're going to talk about the MVP at all, but I think even prior to us doing that multivariable prioritization, this process of doing that and being able to integrate that with our campus master plan was super helpful, and it actually gave us real third-party expert data that we were able to submit to the state agency folks to say, we're not just blowing smoke. We're not just saying that this building here is a building that's not worth keeping. These are the reasons why,
Right.
or these are the reasons why we want to keep this building and renovate it because of its functional value that it has above and beyond just the historic value. So,
Right.
so that's another thing that was very significant and actually was super helpful for us last week in the presentations that I was giving.
Excellent. One of the things, and Brian, you sort of alluded to it with regards to the master plan and the need to potentially, divest of buildings or downsize the portfolio. I think, higher education as a whole is facing that potential. And obviously every campus is unique, but of having too much space or surplus space based on demographics, based on all those sorts of things. I think, in my experience, a lot of people shy away from those discussions because size seems to be status in a lot of institutions. Can you guys both talk a little bit about USM's, what I see as fairly unique willingness to have those, to start asking those tough questions when it comes to your existing buildings?
Can I start?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Okay,
sure.
let me start. So, because I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience back in Virginia. So, when I was working there in Virginia, it may be different now, but when I was there, there was a ton of university work being done, and it didn't seem like there was any limit to it.
Right.
And everybody was trying, because we're all trying to attract students. And so as an architect firm, I mean, we're designing things whatever the client is telling us to do. So I mean, so they're building all these things. It's great for our benefit as a firm, right? But as we saw the construction, and I would think to myself, is this even sustainable? Because it's just like, and so now fast forward to today, we are facing the demographic cliff that everybody talks about in higher education. We just have less and less high school students that are graduating from high school in general. And then there are also, there's a lot of students that are just not even interested in college at all. So you have those two things that are kind of working against us as far as like the population of our student body for universities around the United States. So So I think it is definitely a challenge, and I think it is a reason why doing facility condition assessments helps us to know where we should be investing the limited resources that we do have, because I think everybody needs to be a lot smarter with their money if they want to not just survive but thrive, the kind of the tough times that are coming ahead.
Absolutely. Luke, anything to add on?
Yeah, I think part of it is, the university or even higher education writ large as an enterprise it's big, right? And it's kind of
Yep.
these ideas that the demographic cliff is coming and that we've overbuilt. Those ideas are becoming more and more accepted, but it's still turning a battleship with a canoe paddle, right? So it's going to take a long time for leaders at all levels to kind of get adjusted to the fact that the president should be graded on space divestment and not graded on space additions.
Right.
And that's way, way above my pay grade. But I think what I've tried to make a career out of is being one or two steps ahead of my leaders and trying to kind of anticipate which way the wind's blowing so that when we are ready, Brian and I are sitting here with the data and we're ready and we're having those conversations today. And a lot of leaders are starting to listen to those conversations more and hear those conversations more. So I think just the preparation on the side of facilities leaders at all levels to see what's coming maybe before the folks in the academic and the research enterprise, right? We know these things are coming. We go to these conferences, these webinars and podcasts. We kind of understand it and kind of being ready and oriented. Maybe that's the word. Oriented and ready to go for that change when the political leaders and when the university leaders are ready for it. And I want to be real careful here to not sound critical of University of Southern Mississippi's leadership. We're having these conversations and people are listening to them, but it's a big enterprise. It's a big thing to turn and to shift directions. So
yeah, I would echo that too. I feel like the leadership at USM has been very supportive of us.
That's great.
They want to know the answers. They're not. There
Absolutely.
are some places I've worked at, or at least as a consultant to, that I felt like they were kind of putting their. I mean, they just weren't. They weren't having these kind of conversations.
Head in the sand kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
and I would echo that. I don't think like our CFO has been extremely supportive. Our cabinet understands what we're doing. I think we're starting to just get to the cusp of making actionable decisions with the data and large decisions, but I know that we're headed in the right direction. And I think Brian and I feel like we've kind of got the facility side of the house in a place that we're ready to have a seat at that table and not get drug along behind the administration.
Yeah. Well, it speaks volumes that you guys are, initiating the difficult conversations, and it speaks volumes that your administration is listening and is open to it. Because I know a lot of times it's just a lot of people are like head in the sand or fingers in the ears. They don't want to hear it because, as you say, the president has in the past been incented by the growth of the portfolio, and now you're asking them to do the opposite. So I think it's great, and I think a lot of folks. A lot of other institutions can take some of the things you've shared today and try to, if they're in this instance, and I think most are, of dealing with excess space, how do we get started? How do we move forward? And gentlemen, we've talked a little bit about the future, but a lot about kind of today and the near term. Thinking 5-10 years down the road, how do you guys see facility and asset management evolving and changing over the course, as I say, of the next 5-10 years? Brian, why don't you start us off on this one, and then we'll come back to
it. And I think this kind of ties into just the challenges that we have in general. It's knowing, just broad brushstroke. It's knowing what facilities do we keep, what facilities can we get rid of, and then also just how do we play catch up? Because in the last year and a half, we've done a lot of analysis of our facility portfolio, and we have a ton of deferred maintenance, that that bad word that you don't like, Bill. but but we have a lot of that. And so it's like, how do you start to address this backlog? I mean, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? So I think the future for us is not so much, we will have some new buildings that we will need to build, but I think it's going to be more on a specialty need. Like, for example, we have a science research facility that we're planning on building a new structure probably in the next less than 5 years, I would imagine. It's just in a fundraising stage right now. But a lot of what our portfolio is going to be is renovating existing spaces, is using the most of what we currently have. And I think that's just wisdom. I think that's going to be the trend, at least for Southern Miss. That's the trend that I see. Unless it's a specialty need, unless there's something that our existing facilities just will not provide us, that we need a 21st century facility for some function or use.
Yeah. The best facility is the one you don't have to build. It's when you can use the existing buildings you have to deliver the program, for sure.
Yeah.
So, Luke, what about your thoughts?
I think that for a long time in the past, facilities was seen as like this black hole that we throw money into and don't really know what comes out of it, right?
Like a boat.
Not like owning a boat, right? So a lot of universities, the political leaders and the people with the money thought, I just throw money at this thing and I don't really see a whole lot. And I think moving forward in the future, we're going to be required as facilities professionals, not just at our university, but we're going to be, enterprise-wide across higher education are going to be required to have the data and the information and the seat at the table to kind of make these, or at least help the administration make these decisions about divestment and, what do we retain, what do we not retain. I think the political environment and landscape is going to require universities to foot more of their own capital renewal budgets moving forward. We see this happening at the federal and the state level with a lot of the things coming out of the capitals that I don't know that we're going to be able to rely on this constant stream of money coming in from granting agencies, tuition dollars, student loan aid, whatever it may be. And I think that we're going to have to fund a lot of those things internally, and it's going to be even more critical to have that data to know where those limited dollars go.
You can't manage what you cannot measure. So, and I think that's something the three of us have talked about often. And so that's a huge reason for having documentation and trying to keep up on it. And I would mention, you haven't mentioned the name yet, but Streamlined Asset Management, that SLAM software, I believe is something that is very helpful for us to deal with on a day-to-day basis of trying to address our needs and to try to be able to track things. So as Luke was talking about earlier, as we're going through a new work order management system, as we integrate that, we want to take that SLAM software and be able to tie it into our work order management system so that we are truly tracking how we're spending money. So if we've been spending, thousands of dollars on this chiller, we get to a certain point, just kind of like a used car, you can keep, spending money doing that, but you get to a certain point, it's like, okay, this is not a wise use of funds. We need to be built, providing something new to replace the old. And so having this information is really helpful in that planning process.
Another thing I think that's going to be critical moving forward is key performance indicators. I think for a long time, like I said before, facilities was this kind of black hole. We threw money into it. I think moving forward, right, university leaders are going to be graded on data that are coming out of our shops, right? Maintenance inputs, maintenance reinvestment rates, unfunded liability, kind of all these things that we're looking at, but maybe aren't vogue in the C-level suites yet. I think that's coming, and I think that we're going to be ready for that, and I think we're going to be a good asset for our leaders.
No, that's great. Well, it's great to hear. Brian, your point about, look, we're going to still be dealing with this issue in 10 years. And I think you're right. Like, yes, technology is going to change and everything else, but this is a problem that is decades in the making. And you're not going to solve a problem that's been made over 50 years in 5 to 10 years. And I think the fact that you are presenting that to your leadership and having the long view that this is going to take time and we're going to get less worse before we get better, and only with discipline over time are we going to actually be able to turn that curve back down. I think that's very very forward thinking. Luke, one question that I didn't prep you for, but I'm going to ask. You mentioned your military service and making the transition to facilities management. We're involved in the SkillBridge program, which is a DoD program that helps promote folks from that are leaving the military for finding careers. If there's anybody listening to the podcast that's in that situation, that's either in and looking to leave or just recently come from the military, and they're interested in a career in facility management or facilities in general, what type of advice would you give to somebody like that?
That's a good question. And it is a good career path. When we go to conferences and when we go to facilities things, there are a lot of retired military people or a lot of veterans end up in higher education facilities management. We come from a background in large bureaucratic institutions. We can navigate large bureaucracies and make things move. I think that just kind of, especially if you're still in the military, start planning early, hone your skills, take a look at things like APA or, when I was in the military, I had no idea what APA even was, but I was looking at IFMA, the International Facilities Managers Association, doing a lot of reading and kind of trying to learn the lingo and the way people talked in facilities management. I kind of saw it early on as a good pathway for me in my, post-military career. And then I can't speak enough about project management. I'm a tireless advocate of PMI, the Project Management Institute. It's a great fit for veterans and former military people, and it's a great fit for higher education facilities, no matter where you end up in higher education facilities. It is not only for the planning, design, and construction folks. We use PMI principles and project management on the operations side of the house every day. So those are some good resources I think people could take a look at, kind of upskill themselves a little bit, learn the lingo, learn some tools. And then when they go to interview, really be able to speak to those, we call them in the military, TTPs, tactics, techniques, and procedures. And understanding those tools and the things that you use to show success.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing, Luke. I really appreciate it. And guys, that's the end. And thanks for answering the unprompted question there. Brian, Luke, anything else you'd like to share with our audience before we wrap up and let you get back to your busy days?
I don't believe so, Bill. I think that was pretty wide ranging. We covered a lot of topics and
covered a lot of ground there. I think that was good. Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for giving your time to myself and to our audience. I think there's a lot of great ideas and tidbits here that our audience can learn from. So, thank you very much, both of you, for your time, for your different perspectives from the same organization, and have a great rest of your day.
All right. Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Bill. See you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye. Well, that was a very insightful conversation with Brian Hauff and Lucas Applewhite from the University of Southern Mississippi. Brian's journey from architecture to facilities taught us the importance of considering maintenance and longevity in every design. Lucas showed how leadership and project management skills from the Air Force translate into keeping a university's operations efficient and effective. Together, they highlighted the power of combining different areas of expertise to serve a campus community spread across multiple sites. Whether it's building new labs or maintaining old dorms, their shared passion for providing top-notch environments for learning really shines through. We thank Brian and Lucas for sharing how their teamwork is making a huge difference at Southern Miss, and we thank you for listening to this episode of Telling Your Asset Management Story.